You can if you want. So I am noticing that there's a lot more people on the right side, so hopefully the church doesn't tip here. So we might have to get everybody to move over, but or they're just staying away from me, one or the other. So welcome everybody. Before we get the meeting started, I just want to go through land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the core traditional territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, which lies within the shared territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Musqueam, Squamish, and Stolo nations. We thank them for that. Thanks for joining us this evening. For those that are new to the Burke Mountain Naturalists, my name is Ian MacArthur. I'm the president of the group for a month and a half more. And I will be guiding you through this meeting tonight. And I do thank some new attendees that have come out to the meeting tonight. If you are new and you'd like to join, that would be great. But otherwise, thank you for coming out. And Lori, who's sitting right here, will be out in the foyer. If you'd like to come and visit her, she'll tell you a little bit about the Burke Mountain Naturalists. And just a reminder that our group is a volunteer-run society. And we need all the help that we can get, especially for doing these meetings and that. It would be great if people could come early and help out a little bit, as well as we do attend festivals and things like that. So volunteer help is very important for our group to survive. Tonight we have Marina Dodis and the screening of her film called The Return. Has anybody here seen it before? Got a few people? Great. Okay. I have not, so I've saved it for tonight to watch. So we do hope to have everybody out here by 9 o'clock tonight. And also just to let you know, we will have a break partway through, and that'll give you an opportunity to go out in the foyer and have a look at the displays and some of the things that are out there. We also have a volunteer sign-up sheet that you can have a look at as well and ask about that. And I don't know if there's anything on the wildlife. Is there anything on the wildlife sightings display yet? Not yet, okay. I'm sure some people saw some wildlife in the last month, so if they can add it to our board, that would be fabulous. Oh, sorry, thank you. I didn't even see the cookies, and I assume there's water there as well. Okay. My idea was bread and water, but that didn't go over as well as cookies, so. And just to remind people, memberships will be coming up. They'll be due at the beginning of January. So our 2024 memberships will be $33 for an individual or $40 for a family. Oh, great. And Brian is our membership coordinator, so he's willing to take your money today. And our next meeting, which will be next month, was December 12th, and we'll be having our AGM silent auction and BMN year in review, which is a slideshow of the activities that we've done over the last year. And if you're interested in joining the executive, we'd love to have you. It's a lot of fun, and we would, if you're interested, just see one of the executive members, and we can tell you all about it. I will be running the BMN Year in Review slideshow, so I'm looking for photos of BMN activities over the last year, and if you can email them to me by the end of November, that would be fabulous. And now we're going to get on with the show. I now call on Dianne Ramage to introduce our guest presenter.
Oh, thank you, everyone that's here. I'm so glad to see so many faces that I recognize. But thank you for inviting Marina to come and talk to you about her movie that she did, her film, and for inviting me as well. I'm delighted to be here. And I'm happy to share in your collective passion for the environment and the world. And it's something that everyone doesn't share that, and I include humans in that, so that's a move for me. But Marina is a very talented artist, and she uses film, both still and moving, as her art medium to tell stories. She's been doing it for about 30 years. She's been in over 20 countries. where she's documented cultural and social issues. And my favorite work that she has done is her storytelling of Indigenous communities in BC, where the stories she's been allowed to film and be able to share. They're wonderful to see, and they're on her website. In addition, Marina is a photographer of architecture, of the human-built environment, which I thought that was kind of interesting when I was reading about her history and thinking about the wonderful, thought-provoking films that she does about nature. And I thought, wow, that's quite a contrast, but it was something that I learned about her. And that's how I got to meet Marina. Marina is this special person. She phoned one day when I was at work and said, oh, you know, I saw salmon in Still Creek. Is there a story about them? Like, how did they get there? And I thought, who is this person that seemed to be full of awe and wonder at seeing salmon in Still Creek? And I thought, wow, I still have that wonder about all the work that was done and the humans that I met, the people that had worked for decades, that were volunteers, by and large, helped by Fisheries and Oceans Canada's Community Advisor Program, to actually get salmon to be in that stream, where 35 years later, Marina could see them and think, wow, I think I'd like to do a film about this. So her wonder and her artistic talent got married with her new passion, and out came the film. Let me see here. One of the reasons that I was really happy about it was that I'm deeply concerned that Pacific salmon are going to suffer the same fate as Atlantic salmon have in Atlantic Canada, and the Atlantic salmon in Europe, and the Pacific salmon in the lower 5 states in the United States that have salmon. That my working professional career has been about engaging public and helping people do what they can in the places that they have influence to make a difference for these amazing animals on the landscape that so many other animals are dependent upon. One of the challenges I was asked when I got a job at the Salmon Foundation was, could I calculate how many salmon used to be coming back to British Columbia, all species, all 7, and through the entire coast, not just the Fraser. And I started with counting records and information that I could get from the Pacific Salmon Commission. And I started coming up with these numbers, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're just too big. And then I thought, oh, if they have a 15% success rate of an egg to an adult at that time, I was trying to figure out the billions of juvenile salmon that left the Pacific coast, that went to the ocean, that fed ecosystems from here to the Bering Sea. And my awe and wonder of this species was tenfold even more. And I was just talking to Sandy a couple minutes ago about people that have climate change depression. Well, people that work with salmon have got species loss depression, the same as people that work with birds. And we've cleansed our language to be able to describe this to people. We say, oh, there's 1 million birds missing. We don't say, we destroyed the habitat of 1 billion birds and killed them. Like, it's the same thing with salmon. So having a person like Marina come that has vision and passion and is an artist that can tell the story in a way that people can understand it and see it was just the most wonderful thing at the right time for many people. And I hope that you enjoy this film. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Marina to have her tell you the struggle it is to be an artist, to go from having a vision and passion to having a product that people care about. So welcome, Marina. Thank you for everything you've done for salmon.
Thank you, Dianne. Does this sound okay? I'm not really used to closer? Yeah. Okay, great. It's really great to be here and see all of you. I had the pleasure of going up Burke Mountain Ridge about a month ago. So it was a nice coincidence to be invited here. I'm a little humbler than what Dianne has talked about around my filmmaking. My path has been as a still photographer, and about 10, 11 years ago, I made a big switch in my life and decided to go into film. So how did this story come about? Well, I was just at the tail end of doing my program at Capilano University, and I saw an article in the CBC that said that there were fish that had come up to an area. I live near the Renfrew SkyTrain station, and a little bit north of that. And the article was about salmon having come to Still Creek. So I was like, where exactly is Still Creek? And maybe I should go down there because it's really only about 8 blocks from my house. So I went down there, and sure enough, at the Superstore and Canadian Tire parking lot, you have to search for it and then find the stream there. And sure enough, there were salmon in there. And so it was a very powerful experience for me. So I thought, this is cool. Like, there's something going on for me with seeing these fish. And then three days later, there was a second article, in fact, from the CBC that was highlighting the fact that there was a type of effluent that had entered the creek, and that salmon were dying. And that was sort of the next step, I guess, which was that I had already, I felt so much loss of something that I'd only had knew for 3 days. And I started to realize how much they had become my salmon. And so one of the paths that I have with filmmaking is, I sort of gauge my own experiences, and I see how they may translate to like a more generalized experience. And I started to realize that people, in fact, who knew about salmon coming into the city were very much in love with it and really had a sort of a protective sentiment around it, which is ironic because they're not koala bears or killer whales. They're like fish. So I then, having done many years of backcountry exploring and hiking and skiing, etc., I thought, how interesting that this is actually happening in an urban area, and that I didn't really know these areas myself personally. I always wanted to go to the really pristine, whatever that really means, places, and I thought it was an interesting idea for myself, because you have to have a lot of tenacity as a filmmaker. You have to find an idea that you're going to try to be able to really be engaged with over a long period of time. So the impetus was around my own curiosity, and I was sort of following that around like where we live and what that means as far as our relationship to the environment. And soon after that, I went down, started to explore these areas. I came across some biologists who were from the Pacific Salmon Foundation, and they were doing counts there. And I talked to them, was told about the Pacific Salmon Foundation, found out about Dianne, and cold called her one day and thought I would ask her a couple of questions. And it's the greatest compliment, because she talked for 1 solid hour straight, and it was unbelievable. Like, I couldn't keep up with how fascinating and energizing that conversation was. So there were a couple of points that were important for me in that conversation that she hit upon, because I couldn't understand, like, why would somebody go through all of this trouble with stream keeping and battling to try to revive these basically really degraded areas? And of course, that was also the idea that the governments also felt, like, why bother with these places? And she really taught me around the value of each and every stream, and that we shouldn't be actually having that attitude because of the specificity of salmon and their genetics. And so I really found some of her ideas and her information to be part of an incredibly rich story that then I thought, yeah, this could work, because there's so many things that salmon kind of influences and touches upon and is a metaphor for and so forth. So it's good because I did work on the project for a long time. And of course, you only have small windows to shoot the actual parts of the salmon's life cycle. So I really only had like 2 or 3 weeks a year, so I couldn't really all do it in 1 year anyhow. So, I'll just say that the idea of the film was around kind of trying to generate some curiosity, so that people would kind of start to have a relationship with where they were living and not give up on urban spaces. So, yeah. So thank you so much, Dianne, and thank you for inviting me, and I hope you enjoy it. Just so you know, it's about 20 minutes. Is there a way to turn the hallway lights off? It's so bright.
Oh, sure.
"45 years ago, Still Creek was probably the most polluted waterway in the lower mainland, certainly one of the most polluted in the province. It suffered extensively from sewage pollution, industrial pollution.
It was full of junk, chemicals and oil.
Materials off the road, cars and the hot water tanks and the rusty bed springs.
In the past, we didn't value creeks. So it wasn't uncommon. You just drop a big culvert down it, fill around it, and then pave over top of it.
There's 120 kilometers of creeks in Vancouver that have been covered with pavement. You can imagine this creek being run underneath the asphalt. This is what you lose. There's one coming straight at us at the moment. It's a big one too, coming right down through here. Look at this. Shifting baselines is a process, and it works like this. Each of us, as we are growing up, we look at the natural world around us and we determine that that is the normal state of nature. And then we measure any change or degradation to the natural world by that sense of what's normal. So we may watch the natural world degrade in some way or be diminished in some way over our lifetimes. But then the next generation comes along, and what for us has become this diminished form of nature is the normal sense of nature for the next generation, the new normal. And if you think about how that works generation over generation over generation, you can see that we really start to lose sight of what nature used to be like.
So this is Stoney Creek, which is the largest tributary of the Burnett River. It's in beautiful shape right here. There's lots of riparian forest around it. It's really well shaded. And it's where most of the salmon in the Burnett River system spawn. It's August, the flows are very low. This is in great shape for salmonids, while the main stem is really much too warm right now. So this creek in the summertime acts as a real refuge for those fish. The last couple of years have been well over 1,000 chum come up through here. These are the same fish that go up over the dam, through Burnaby Lake, and into Still Creek. So that for the last 2 or 3 years, there's been salmon spawning right in East Vancouver for the first time in many decades. The salmon in the whole system were eliminated for at least 50 years. What's really astonishing about this place is where it is. This watershed has more than 200,000 people in it. It's just highways and rooftops and pavement with this ribbon of green with the creeks and river flowing through it. So to have a salmon run like this in a place this urbanized is almost completely unique. It's a treasure, and I love coming here.
The Musqueam people have a rich and deep culture because of the abundance of salmon that run up the Fraser River. It's one of our genesis points, where we all came from. These fish are absolutely our relatives. The returning of salmon is a gift, so we treat those salmon with that sacredness, the life they've given. These fish have been living with the Musqueam people since we have been living at this site. 5,000 years, give or take. Knowing the way that our salmon species work, they stop eating once they hit the river system. So they need to conserve as best they can. So they swim up until the tide changes, and then they swim over into the back eddies to rest, waiting for the tide to change and then move with the tide again. But if you look at the Fraser River, especially in my territory, Most of those back eddies have been removed, so the fish don't have anywhere to stop and rest on their way back to the spawning grounds. We're noticing something in the last few years that the fish are actually waiting outside on the flats for weeks longer than they have historically. In the time of all my living elders now, speaking about the elders that gave them the history before, this is over a 200 or 300 year span of history. This has never been seen before. So things are changing. They're waiting until it's almost too late.
When salmon make it to the ocean, there are predators waiting for them. And they're all dependent upon these salmon coming out to the ocean. That's the cycle of life. This time of year, I like to come here to look to see if the salmon are coming back. I look to see if there's any whales. If there's whales, maybe that's an indicator. Maybe that's the salmon are coming. Once they've completed their ocean migration and they come back, they head towards the North American coast. They have to find their stream, and they use their olfactory sense. They use their nose, they smell their stream. They use the moon, and they use geomagnetic north to be able to migrate across the open ocean. They know where they're going, and that's all in their cells. Just part of the miracle of the salmon. It's just an amazing animal. They approach the Fraser River, and it's a muddy river. And they're passing all of the tugboats, the sky trains, shopping malls, housing developments, and they have to find the small streams that they hatched in. And you don't think about it from the salmon's perspective. Thank goodness there's habitat that's been put back by people, the stewards that have been on that river for years. They're putting it back. And if they hadn't put it back, those fish would not be able to spawn there.
I used to look into this beautiful crystal clear water with beautiful gravel and wonder, why are there no salmon? So in 2004, I actually worked my way down the creek. I cleared all the debris blocks. And that year, fish made it up to spawn here. We've had fish every year since.
The Brunette watershed had all 7 species of salmon at one time, and it went from all 7 to 0. The local citizens had a memory that there were salmon in there at one time. And they started working together to find out what could be done to bring them back. Their first approach was to government, and the government said, it's too far gone. So they banded together, they worked with local industry and business, and they started working on it for decades, pulling out all those bed frames and old cars and hot water tanks and boilers. Individuals working together for decades, and there are the salmon back in the watershed.
These are coho salmon. This fish is a female. I can tell that the fish is spawned by the erosion on the tail from the fish moving the gravel when they turn sideways. When I run my hand down, there is nothing left in the body cavity. So these fish have successfully deposited their eggs and spawned. Very good news. This fish here is about 60 centimeters. The run this year has been very low numbers. To seed the whole of the Stoney Creek watershed, we need about 500 chum and probably 100 coho. For chum, the last time we counted, we were at about 155, and for coho, we were at 4. So that's a huge drop. When I see the numbers going down, it makes me not feel good that in 4 years' time, the chances of us having fish down here are very, very slim. There are 90 creeks in Burnaby, less than 10 have fish. So to preserve what we have is very important. This fish did not spawn. Why are these fish dying before they spawn?
Of all the 2,500 eggs that salmon lay, maybe a pair is replaced by another pair. From 2,500 eggs, you think there's only 2 salmon coming back. That's kind of concerning. It's more than concerning, actually. All of the scientists are realizing that intact habitat in fresh water, the fish leave the healthiest. And being fat little healthy fish going to the ocean gives them a better chance of coming back as an adult.
Salmon are endangered because they're very much affected by chemical spills, salts, and with the ever-increasing densification, it's going to be very difficult to maintain these fish populations. The toxic effect of urban runoff, it's killing the fish in the creek. This is not good, and it makes my heart bleed.
After the years I've been working with salmon, and I've come to realize that individual projects and science aren't going to save salmon. It's going to be the changing of behavior and the values of people to value the water being in the stream rather than on your lawn, realizing that salmon needs space on the landscape, that every square inch doesn't have to be a house or a soccer field. It is us taking a little bit less of everything and sharing it back with nature. That will make the difference for salmon.
I find that the world is getting ready to listen. A lot more of the population is coming through. What can I do for my part? If you live with that mindset of respect, you will make the right decision. If you live with a mindset of entitlement, like something is given so you take it, then you do not have the respect to make sure that it will always be there.
When we share a landscape with other species, they become part of the community, and it really helps us develop a sense of place, and our identities become attached to the things around us. And then we become the kind of people who will work harder to defend them. I think it's really difficult for us to defend nature in the abstract. We really need to have some kind of connection with it in order to care enough about it, to act on its behalf. This is the kind of place that people can develop that sort of a relationship and that sense of living in a natural community. We can more easily understand the importance of the big picture as well. And I think we become more engaged as environmental citizens. But we don't really have the opportunities in the city in a lot of places to develop even those first relationships with the natural world. Without that kind of exposure, we're really missing something. We're really missing opportunities to develop our humanity.
We're going to tag team those answers.
Yeah. I had heard about that as well, the issue around tires through some research that was being done in Seattle that has sort of notorious highways quite close to streams. And they really struggled to find out why there was such an immediate die-off from adult salmon. And only through like a lot of concerted research did they find out that it wasn't just the tires, it's actually the chemicals that they treat the tires with to sustain their life of a tire. And that the combination, they were testing the tires and then they were testing the chemicals, and the only way they found out was when they actually combined them. And so that's a huge problem. And I would say that it's a massive problem when people are driving really large vehicles and electric vehicles and hybrids because they're so heavy. And I think that electric vehicles, I understand that they go through tires 40% faster. So there's a huge problem. It's not a very well-known problem. But the other part that happened with that study in Seattle was that they then took some areas next to the highway that were, you know, the highway, well, let's say it was the ceiling height, and then the streams were down below. They terraced them, and they planted native plants. And apparently nature knows how to do that because they tested the waters, and it was amazing how much of a difference it made. So if you think about every time you're driving, your roads are sloped, and they're exacerbating the runoff into streams no matter where you are.
The only thing I'll add is the Government of Canada, Environment Canada, is responsible for pollution that goes into streams, into anadromous-bearing fish streams. And the chemical is not on the law list as a pollutant yet. So our concern right now is people being aware that BC Hydro is replacing the buses on, or not BC Hydro, used to be BC Hydro, TransLink. I don't know that. All I'm saying is write to TransLink and say that you're concerned and you'd like them to choose tires that actually don't have that chemical in them, because that is what is making the difference. Is everyone that's in government is responding to political pressure these days. They do surveys. They're trying to appear to be responding to the public. So if you have a concern, these are the times to be able to contact the government, because they're the ones that make the regulations that follow the acts, right? You got the act, you got the law, and then you got the regulations. Let them know that you care, write them. So there are tires that are okay? There are some tires that do not have it. I understand the same as what Marina's saying. I think it's to do with UV harm, that UV degrades petroleum products quickly. So it's something that's applied to it to prevent that. So I would suspect that there are places that have it even a worse problem. I don't know that they have salmon in Texas, but they sure have invertebrates and birds and other things that would also be having a problem with this. But the species that is most susceptible to their harm are coho. They're already considered the princess salmon, as we used to always call them, especially in Burn Creek and in the Brunette system. They were the ones that we would find dead quite often. They would be the ones that didn't make it. But they're in the streams for 18 months, in the gravel as eggs, and also in the stream. And it's not just the immediate death, it's also the epigenetic changes that are happening to these fish from chronic exposure to pollutants. So instead of killing them, because that's what the law uses as that, L30, like how many fish died in the first 48 hours when we put poison in it? How much poison can we apply before it actually kills the species? So they're looking for thresholds. Well, there are no thresholds that are appropriate for all species. But it's individuals like you and Burke Mountain Naturalists have an amazing history of the good work that you've done.
not logging in the watershed anymore. Elaine Golds is sitting here. She was one of the people that was responsible for not having chloramine in our drinking water, that even though it might not kill the human, if that drinking water got into the stream, it killed everything. So you're the right group to be doing the amazing work of maybe helping change those tires.
Jane?
You said that the salmon, when they come from the ocean, that they locate the stream they came from by smelling it. Now, this one time there were no salmon in Still Creek. So how did the salmon decide to swim up there? They
After
wouldn't
30
recognize
years,
it.
after 30 years of people preventing pollution going in, because for the first 20, they did pollution prevention. It was before cell phones, so they had the Sapperton Fish and Game. They would have pockets full of dimes, and they would be watching a stream, and they'd have to run to a payphone to call a fisheries officer that hopefully he was by his phone somewhere to say the dry cleaning truck is dropping off all their dry cleaning fluid. So as it became more socially unacceptable to do some of the polluting things and the water quality started improving, City of Vancouver also started separating the combined sewers. So instead of having, when there's too much rain, it would flush raw sewage into the Brunette River. So it was the opposite to clean water. Usually the solution to pollution is dilution. Well, in the Brunette River, when we were out there doing our work for all those years, every time it rained, the E. coli, the coliform counts went off the charts. So when they improved that, then for 10 years they tried putting in fry. They would take them from different streams and put them in there, and they would die before they even left the Brunette. So on year 32, I think, they actually had the fish leave and live. So then they built a small hatchery. There's a Craig Street hatchery, and they went and they had to get donor stock. So salmon are dedicated. You can't take a salmon stock from a stream on the east bank of the river and take them to the west bank of the river, because those two little cells that make that amazing animal, they already know that when they come home, they have to turn left, and they will not turn right. They won't cross the Fraser River to go to the other side. So you have to be really careful about your donor stocks, and they usually have to be from an adjacent stream. So the Brunette has salmon that came from what was left of the Chum Run in the Coquitlam. It was one of the streams that kept a remnant stock, and it was done through a hatchery work. Not the hatcheries that are getting the bad reputation on the news, by the way. There's a lot of bad, inaccurate information out there. Conservation hatcheries take small numbers of fish, and they keep those eggs to prevent them from harm from catastrophic events every year, which we now have. So we have freezing, flooding, pollution. So they have a small number, up to maximum 1/3, and they keep them in a hatchery, and then they release them. So that is what's helping them. So it's salmon enhancement done with conservation hatcheries.
I think you now know what I mean when I said that she spoke for an hour, and it was amazing. Like I was like, don't stop, keep going. And it's so vital for me to have Dianne next to me, because I'm not a biologist, and I've learned so much, so thank you.
The shots you had of the different animals that live in our watershed are quite amazing. How did you capture all those shots? Was it just luck? And did you have a researcher help you with all those archival photographs?
A lot of the film was done on my own. I did the research. So there's a couple of things. So some of those shots aren't from Vancouver, but I also tried to make sure that the dialogue that you were listening to was in a more generalized form, so that, because one of the things that I find really irritating is when I'm watching a film about this place, but they're using photography from somewhere else. And so some of those shots, like the bear shots up in Port Hardy area, and one of the eagle carrying the fish is on the Sunshine Coast. But they were in BC, and the dolphins, like I do a lot of roaming around, so I get to have that kind of fun aspect to it. The other thing I wanted to say, though, is that I tried to take all of the bird shots that were there. Like I tried to show the wildlife that's actually there and in the area of the story. It's a very tricky place, though, for sound, because you can't get lovely bird sounds there. There are just nothing but highway and, you know, railway and SkyTrain, which is quite interesting in and of itself. And it's an amazing experience to walk through there, because you're kind of having this completely different reaction of like a beautiful place, but it's just kind of a crazy audio landscape. The other thing that I wanted to make sure of too is that there's no music. And so it's an interesting thing to think about if you like that or not. Yes. So. No tension track, thank you. Yeah. And so the what sounds like music was a dear friend who does these amazing audio kind of making music out of natural sounds. So that felt that was kind of the way to go.
Hold on, Sandy.
And Don Gillespie's daughter did the animation, Brenda. So that she's listed in the credits. They all know Dawn. They all know the lady that did her animation. They all know her dad. Some of us know Brenda as well. Oh, some of them know Brenda as well.
Yeah, so she did the actual drawing of the fish, and then my friend Jen Strom did the actual like animation in order to kind of locate. Yeah, I love that work. Yeah, thank you. I'll let her know.
Have any school trustees seen this? Or anybody on a school board? Because this is great school curriculum.
Thank
Because it would be eye-opening for kids to see what's in their backyard, because many kids coming from other countries would love to see this. It's eye-opening. It sparks that spark in kids and in adults.
Yeah, I haven't had tremendous success with the school boards. I've had it shown in a couple of different places, and I'll just tell you quickly an experience. A school teacher in Surrey reached out to me because she was doing science class and she wanted to do, you know, just that, and she was taking kids out to the local streams in Surrey, and so she wanted to show the film in her class. They were, you know, between sort of 9 and 12 kind of ages, and so I came to speak. Dianne came as well, and it was a really amazing experience. And I have to say, and I should have brought them along, but afterwards the teacher sent me an envelope, you know, like a 8.5 by 11 kind of envelope, and in there were about 20 letters handwritten by the kids about their experience, and like I just wanted to cry, like reading these. It was very, very moving. And next week, there's a group in Nanaimo Regional District, kind of like Metro Vancouver, but Nanaimo. And one of the people there is taking initiatives to take, sort of mid-teen age, trying to engage people who, you know, young people who are having their own climate kind of, or, you know, global nature depression, to engage them in a type of a project where they will see some results. And so he picked stream keeping. And so he asked to show the film and have a little talk afterwards. But yeah, if you have any ideas, I think it would be great. It's on Knowledge Network. So that's a plus. They didn't want to fund the film, but apparently they wanted to purchase it afterwards.
Because with all the doom and gloom, it's uplifting. And it would uplift kids, it would uplift adults.
Yeah, thank you.
Kids and their parents, it's a great thing.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been very lucky to show it. I've shown it to Burnaby Mayor and Council. I've seen it, Metro Vancouver, the Fraser Port. So it's always really gratifying to also have organizations watch it, as well as the young. Because one thing that I learned from talking to people at the Fraser Port is that and I think this is really as well for stream keepers, is a lot of people are working incredibly hard, and it's a huge battle, particularly within organizations, I think, and they need uplifting. They need to be encouraged to keep hammering away at, you know, their superiors or the political landscape.
They should
So-
all get a call from you. On a bad day, it'll change their life.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to do was, because I was so impressed with the stream keeping, that I wanted to honor them. So it was really cool to show this to the Stoney Creek stream keepers, because I wanted them to be able to kind of see themselves. That was really important, I think.
Another question? I just want to join onto that about the schools that someone said to me about how many schools, especially in our area, back onto a creek and, you know, fish-bearing streams. So it's amazing if you look at the different schools around. So question there from one last question.
It's more of a comment. A retired teacher, my programming has been stimulated. You can make it really easy for teachers to grab onto this if you go to the BC curriculum site and see how this film hits a whole bunch of different places in the curriculum and say, I think there's quite a few schools that also try to raise salmon in the classroom. So that's another place you could go. I know that at Stoney Creek, I think it's in May, they do release salmon. And there's a community school right there at Stoney Creek. So I think once you get in, teachers talk, especially on professional development days, with success. And as the lady in the front row mentioned, this is uplifting and looking to the future. So good luck to you.
Talk to me after.
I will.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody. We'll take our break now, probably about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back for some wildlife sightings and some announcements. Yes, thank you, Lori. That's Lori again. New people, see Lori.